Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You all come to the second class or the second lesson, lesson 2. As far as colonization or the history of colonization of Africa is concerned, if you followed me in the last lecture or in the last lesson before this one, we traced the history of colonization. How, for instance, Ghana, which we use as a case study, the Gold Coast, came under British colonial administration. The histories, the various series of wars, the Anglo-Ashanti Wars. Remember, we talked about the processes through which the Northern Territory, the Ashanti Territory, the Coastal Territory, and then the Transatlantic Togoland or Trans-Volta Togoland came under British colonial administration. Now, in lesson 2, we are going to focus on the British colonial administration proper. Now, having established their control over the Gold Coast, how is the British going to colonize West Africa? So that is what we are going to look at in this one. Now, the objectives of this lesson is that by the end of the lesson, at least you should be able to trace the history of Berlin Conference, which began or formalized the scramble and then the partition of Africa. And then we are also going to look at the reasons why colonization came into being. The Europeans claim that they didn't come here at first to colonize, but later on they decided to colonize us. So we are going to look at the reasons why they now decided to colonize Africa, and then we move on to the other things. So let's start with this, the Berlin Conference. All right. Now, the history of colonization can never be complete without this topic, this subtopic, the Berlin Conference. Yes. Now, in the face of a territorial rivalry between the major European countries like the Germans, the Netherlands, Britain, France, and then Belgium, and then Portugal was also there. Now, the European countries feared, they were afraid that the rivalry might escalate into war between the European countries. And so, to avoid this, in November 1884, the German chancellor at the time, known as Otto von Bismarck, he was a German chancellor. Otto von Bismarck convened a meeting involving all these superpowers or all these European countries that I have already mentioned. And this meeting was held in Germany to look at how they are going to prevent the rivalry which might escalate into war. Now, at this meeting, a series of agreements were made over how a territory can be claimed to be the property or the colony of any of the colonial masters. Now, this agreement and this conference, because it was held in Berlin, it is this conference which started in November 1884 and ended in February 1885 that has come to be known as the Berlin Conference. The Berlin Conference. So I said it started in November 1884 and then ended in February the next year, that is 1885. Now let's go and look at what issues did they discuss at the Berlin Conference. What are some of the agreements that they made? The first agreement or you may say resolutions. Now, there were a series of agreements that were made, but for the purposes of this topic, we are going to concentrate on about 3, 4, or 5. Now, the first one was that if any country wants to establish claim over any territory, that country must inform the other European countries just to prevent rivalry or conflict. So the first one is that one, any country which wants to establish claim over a territory must inform other countries. And then the second one is that having established your claim over a territory, the country must maintain effective occupation of that territory. Yes, you must maintain. If you just can't say that this land is mine and then you go and stay back in your home country. No. So an agreement was made at the Berlin Conference that if you establish a claim over any land, you must maintain effective occupation over the land. And that means you must send administrators from your country to control or to administer that territory. So that is the second one. In fact, this second agreement made a lot of countries which were small and which were less powerful and then poorer. Talk about the likes of Portugal. They lost a lot of their territories to France and Britain. For example, Portugal lost a lot of territories in Central Africa to Britain and France because of this second agreement, because they did not have enough money to maintain effective occupation of the land. So that is the second agreement. The third agreement was that you must allow free trade to go on the territories that you have established claim. And then the fourth one was that slave trade must be avoided. Slave trade must be avoided. And then the final one, for the sake of this topic, is that you must allow free navigation of, there are two most important rivers in Africa, River Congo and then River Niger. You must ensure that any country, any territory you claim, you must allow free navigation of these two important rivers, River Congo and then River Niger. For the sake of those who want to write, let me write it on the board. So the first one. Okay, so these were the agreements. Now, it must be mentioned that the Berlin Conference actually formalized the scramble for Africa, because right from the conference, then all European countries which participated in the conference tried to rush. There was a mass rush for African territories. So that is why the Berlin Conference is sometimes referred to as the scramble for Africa, or the partition of Africa. So from there, Britain, France, Belgium, Germany itself, the Netherlands, the Dutch, all ran to secure territories for themselves. For the purpose of this topic, we are going to concentrate on two major colonial powers. As I told you in the last lesson, we are going to look at British colonies and then French colonies. Now for the British, they acquired in West Africa, they acquired four territories. So the British colonies were Ghana, now Ghana, then Gold Coast, the Gambia, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone. So these were the four territories in West Africa which came under colonial administration of the British. Later we are going to look at how they are going to administer their territories. Now for the French, they had about 9 territories or colonies in West Africa. Remember in the last lesson we defined what a colony was. So for the French, they acquired 9 territories, and here they are. We have Burkina Faso, Benin, Côte d'Ivoire, we have Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, we have Mauritania, we have Mali, we have Guinea was there, the 7th one, we have Niger, then we had Senegal, and then we have Togo. So these were the 9 territories which came under the French colonial administration. Now we want to end here for want of time. In our next lesson, we are going to look at British colonial administration in West Africa. How is the British going to colonize these 4 territories? And then from there, we are going to look at how is France going to administer these 9 territories. And that is referred to as French colonial administration in West Africa. Thank you for your audience. If you want to follow me, this is Atemuda Lecture Series. You can hit the like button, you can comment if you will, and then subscribe so that the next time I put a video on the YouTube, you are going to get a notification. Thank you for your audience, and then bye for now.